guys, how you doing? It's Henry at Mowers and Blows. Welcome to another episode. As you guys saw from the last episode, this Lt2500 Craftsman made by MTV was delivered to me by the owner. The owner had another tractor that he blew the engine on, and this was one that he got from his friend. What's wrong with this one? Right now it doesn't start on its own because I think it needs a carburetor clean, which is strange because he actually showed me a video of it running, no problem. So I'll have to look at that later. But the big problem for this, that the reason why he wanted this fixed was because when you engage the PTO to spin the blades to mow, it doesn't do anything. I had ascertained that the cable engagement of the PTO, the wire that leads from the lever itself to the pulley that tightens the blades, is busted. So I ordered a cable, and we're gonna wait for it to come, and then I'll reinstall it and hopefully it'll start to mow. But it won't mow right now because the blades and the spindles are seized. So the only way to fix that is to take the deck off and then manhandle the blades to loosen the bearings and stuff, and also grease them. Also, the steering column on here is very stiff. Steering column, sector gears on the column itself is very rusty, and also it's possible that the spindles in the front end are also rusted too, so it's very difficult to turn. So we're gonna have to address that, clean the carburetor, get the cable, take the deck off. Right now we're gonna take the deck off. Here you go. There's the deck. Actually pretty easy to remove. 3-point connection, 4 points actually. These pull things come right out of the hangers. Unloop the belt around the crankshaft double stack pulley on the bottom and disconnect the cable, which was busted anyway. As you can see, evidence of a lot of rust and also some dirt buildup there. You try to turn, it's seized. They're seized on there pretty well. Some penetrating oil around there, kind of help it out. I'm gonna go get a breaker bar with the right socket for this and a sledgehammer. Got a breaker bar with a 15/16 socket. No sledgehammer needed. Some crap in between here. Kind of looped. This one's now moving. I may have to take this blade off to get that crap out in between there. Same goes for here, some string or vine or something like that. Yeah, this one's pretty bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take the blades off. 1/2-inch impact. So they're MTD blades. It's a 6-star, kind of like the Israeli flag. And all this stuff has gotten in there. As you saw, I oiled the spindles and they now move freely with my hands. The reason why I'm getting a little bit of resistance is because these brakes are still engaged from the pulley. See, from the tensioner pulley, it's engaged. That's why it doesn't move as easy as it should. So this is frozen right here. There was so much dirt in here. I don't understand how mowing your lawn you could get dirt up there, like a half bag of topsoil was on here, you know? And because that dirt is on there, if this is left outside, it absorbs moisture, so this part starts to rust out. Fortunately, it's still good, but the paint, just from touching it, just from cleaning it with this brush, the paint is just coming off. Even over here, there's like a big bubble. I want to take off the paint so we can see if there's any rot underneath. See that? See how easy that is? Just comes right off. It's filled with rust. But fortunately, there's no rust. It's still pretty solid. I'll spray something over here to prevent any further damage. But people, try to keep your stuff indoors, huh? Look at that. Chris, you may want to paint this over. So the cable pulley from the PTO lever that engages this tensioner pulley, this is it right here. As you can see, the cable is busted. So I need to order a new cable. I should order it right now so that by the time I finish this video, it'll arrive, hopefully. So it goes into this hole. It's the only hole there. And basically when you engage it, it pulls the cable that way, therefore moving this that way. And it doesn't. Because the tensioner is seized on this bolt here, we're going to try to give it some influence. So I'm just going to lightly tap this right here and let it go that way, because that's where, when you pull it, this is the pivot point where this thing rotates like that to put tension on the belt to make it tighter so that it engages the blades. So this pivot point is frozen. So it obviously has another nut on the other side. Let's see if we loosened it enough to get it to move. No, it doesn't. Oh, it's starting to move now, look. See? I think that's the full motion of it. Just that 2 inches of movement. Here is when the extreme touches the pulley to stop it. Then once engaged, it goes to 2 inches and releases the brake from the pulley so that it turns. So I think that did it. Lateral movement is good. And you have this spring that keeps the tension. And that spring looks super rusty too. Don't know how long this will hold right there, but if this breaks eventually in the future, you'll know what it is. The return spring right there. Seems like it's okay. This is also the area where you clip the cable here, leads to this hole here. So when you engage it, pulls this tensioner up, tightens this belt to the crankshaft, turns the blades. You know what? Let's release the brake. Okay, now look, it pops back by itself, which is great. It has to release this one too from that arm. So this is seized now too. This brake on that pulley is seized. All right, fellas. Well, when I told Chris I was going to do this job, I had no idea that it had so many other issues. Getting this deck worked out was a pain. I have a feeling that because the spindles were seized on this thing, when the original owner of the tractor tried to engage it, it snapped the spring cable because the blades were seized. So if the blades were seized, you're forcing this cable, right? And it's not going to go anywhere. With the engine torque turning at that speed, all of a sudden you try to engage it, that's what destroyed the cable, because the blades were seized from being left outdoors, rusted shut and all that. So anyway, it took me a while, but I loosened up the brakes right here. See, so now if you had a new brake cable, you would engage it with the lever. This would remove the brake from here, and in turn pull this arm and move the brake off of that one. When you let go, it returns. So now look, both brakes are off its pulleys. And when this is off, the brakes are off the pulleys, it spins freely. So this deck now is ready to use. I'm going to keep it off here until I receive the cable. In the meantime, you know what you can do to help out this rust? Spray the whole thing with oil, because oil will repel the water and it won't, I mean, you'll have an oily deck, but so what? You know what I mean? You want to try to preserve the deck. So, I mean, this will do the job. I mean, this is exactly what undercoating is. It's oil, you know. So if you have an old car that's leaking oil, just leave it down there. It coats the underbelly of the truck and it won't rust there. It won't rust where oil is. Now that we've gotten one problem taken care of, we have to figure out why this doesn't run on its own. I'm going to take off the carburetor, at least the bowl, and see how bad it is. So on these Kohler carriages, two 10mm bolts. To remove the air filter base off the carburetor. You actually don't need to remove it to remove the bowl, but it makes it easier for you. Disconnect the vent tube from the valve cover. Is there another one here? There is. It's a 5/16 on the top. Also, somebody's been in here because all the 5/16 bolts are loose. Like the cover's been taken off of it. There we go. There's the cover. And there's your typical Kohler Command, Kohler Courage carburetor. They're interchangeable. What these things are known for is leaking. This one miraculously doesn't leak. But and a fuel solenoid seems to work, because when I turn on the power, it clicks. But that usually is the cause of a lot of problems. You see, you can't take it off because the fuel solenoid is in the way. You can't take the fuel solenoid off because this wire is coiled around the area where you turn it. It's a conniption, right? I'm going to disconnect the fuel solenoid, and I have to cut this zip tie to take it off. Or maybe I can loop it. There we go. I just looped it, I didn't cut it. Now I need a special tool to get that fuel solenoid off. Here's the tool. It's a special fuel solenoid tool. There we go. Here's a fuel solenoid, and very little gas is coming out. It's very unusual. Let's just prove that the fuel solenoid works. We'll reconnect this again. And let's see if this thing pops in and out by itself when I put power to it. It does, see? So the fuel solenoid actually does work, which is amazing. But yeah, see, fuel is flowing, but it's not going in there. It should be pouring out. So something's up with this bowl, and I'm afraid to take it off, because once you take it off, the gasket could be busted. Let's take the fuel line off the carburetor and see if it pours out. And it does, it pours out. So the carburetor is dirty. Disconnect the choke. Disconnect the tensioner spring. Z-bend it off of the throttle. Let it sit there. Huh. This is a Nicky, but it doesn't have the two screws that go in like that. It's unusual. Let's see the condition of the bowl. Holy shit. Holy cow, check it out. Holy cow. That's trash. It's a miracle that this even started, because I saw it in a video running. So, I mean, that stuff gets trapped in there, sucked up, clogs the jets. Gonna have to clean this. So as you saw from time lapse, my camera actually died because it was in the sun and it was too hot, so it shut down. But I put the carburetor back after I cleaned it, and let's give her a try. It should run on its own now since the carburetor is clean. Choke. the lowest setting, but in between idle and full throttle, it pops a lot. So I think the fuel solenoid is getting in the way of enough fuel getting in there, or it could be the valves need adjustment because you see some popping. When it pops like that, the timing's off a little, or maybe the gas is bad. It could be a lot of things, but I think I want to check out the valves because I bet you the valves have never been done. So that's the lowest throttle. Watch when I raise it to full throttle. Bottom is good, full top is good, but in the middle getting there is no good. So it still could be the carburetor. I mean, it runs very well on idle, runs very well on full throttle. In between, it doesn't run very well. So it could be the valves. To get access to the valves, man, I didn't know I was going to have to do the deck and the carburetor clean and now the valves. I don't know, man. Chris may have to get me a case of ammo for this. This is more than I bargained for. So this design is terrible because there's no quick disconnect for the lights. You either have to take the modules off of the hood with the light bulbs in them, or you got to just set it this way, you know what I mean? But it was easy enough to take off the hood. You got to take off the engine cover for this because it gets in the way of the head, the valve covers. It looks like it's already been taken off before because these bolts are loose. Like it's been off before. Dipstick out. And the head gasket's still good because after running it for a while, there's no smoke coming out of the reservoir. Gonna get a screwdriver, take out the spark plug to get top dead center. Chris did say he changed the spark plug and it does look like a brand new spark plug. Ooh, man, is that hot. There's a brand new spark plug. As you can see, starting to foul already with some carbon. I wanted to show you the remnants of that ethanol breakdown that was in the carburetor bowl. This is what was in the carburetor bowl now that it's dried up. This was why the carburetor wasn't running right, because this was getting sucked up into the emulsion and the jets, and that's why it wasn't getting any fuel. Okay guys, I changed the carburetor to a Walboro. Walboro is the original carburetor that was on the first Fuller Commands. Walboros are adjustable. So there's a fuel mixture screw on the end of it, which allows you to adjust the air-fuel mixture. The one that this came with did not have an adjustment. So I swapped it out. This is low idle. down to idle. Now it's purring like a kitten. It wasn't the valves at all, it was just the carburetor. Now we got a Walbro carburetor on it. Engine runs great. I also added some more oil in there. So there we go. Now we got this baby running well with a new carburetor. Did the valves, although the valves were not really out of whack, so I put it back. I did a minor adjustment on the exhaust. And let's see. We figured out that it was indeed the cable that engages the lever. The cable comes down here. And as you can see, it's broken. That piece was attached to this spring over here. We freed up the deck, although we found a lot of rust. Coated it with oil. Chris can paint it if he wants later. Oiled up all the joints over here. Now this pulley, tensioner pulley, moves freely, releasing the brake. This arm with the return spring releases this brake. Now the deck is ready to be put on, but we're gonna have to order the cable, and it's easier to put the cable on without the deck, so we're gonna keep it off. So I'm gonna order the cable, and we'll come back to this when it arrives. So tomorrow I'll come out and we'll try to work on the steering a little bit. I wasn't expecting on doing so much work to this tractor, but you know what? A deal's a deal. I told him I would get it going for him. And if I'm gonna get it going for him, it better be getting going well, you know what I mean? But we also have to loosen up the steering column because you can't steer very well at all. But you're gonna have to wait until the next episode. Hey, you guys know I do videos 3 times during the weekdays and reviews on the weekends, right? So it's just a matter of you waiting a day. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. We'll see you guys next time on Mowers and Blowers.
Hey, I'm Andy from Jericho.
See you guys next time on Mowers and Blowers.